You're not broke because you don't have money. You're broke because you have desire, because you want, because wanting is a hunger that feeding makes worse. Schopenhauer figured this out in 1818, and nobody listened because the truth was too uncomfortable. Still is. He saw that life is suffering not because bad things happen, but because wanting never stops. You get what you want and immediately want something else. The getting doesn't satisfy, just reveals the next lack, the next hole, the next thing you need to feel complete. And that cycle, that endless wanting, that's what keeps you broke. Not your bank account, your will, your desire, your fundamental inability to ever have enough. If you're tired of people telling you to manifest your desires when desire is the problem, subscribe to Raw Existence right now. We don't sell you solutions. We tell you why solutions don't work. Like this video if you've ever gotten exactly what you wanted and felt empty anyway. Comment below and tell me the last thing you wanted that actually satisfied you. Let's talk about why wanting keeps us poor, no matter how much we have. Schopenhauer called it will, capital W. Not your personal will, not your choices or decisions, the will. The blind force that animates everything. The thing that makes you want to live even when living hurts. The thing that makes you hungry even after you've eaten. The thing that makes you want more even when more won't help. The will to live. And it's not your friend. It's not on your side. It's just there, wanting, always wanting, using you to want through. He wrote that we're like lambs playing in a field while the butcher eyes them, happy, innocent, not knowing that the wanting itself is the butcher, that the will is what kills us, not quickly, slowly, through the endless cycle of desire and disappointment, through the suffering of never being satisfied, through the exhaustion of always needing something we don't have. And the worst part is, you can't stop wanting, can't turn off the will. It's not a choice you're making, it's the thing making you. You are the will wanting. Your consciousness is just the will becoming aware of itself, aware of its own hunger, its own lack, its own fundamental dissatisfaction with everything. And that awareness doesn't free you, just makes you conscious of the trap you're in. I'm watching the field behind my house right now, and the field doesn't want to be a forest. Doesn't look at itself and think, if only I had more trees, more height, more shade, then I'd be complete. Just is a field, just exists as what it is. But you can't be like the field, can't just exist. Have to want, have to need, have to constantly be reaching for the next thing that will finally make you whole. And you know this is true. Know that getting what you want doesn't satisfy, doesn't end the wanting, just shifts it. You wanted the job, got the job. Now you want the promotion, wanted the relationship, got the relationship. Now you want it to be different, wanted the house, got the house. Now you want a bigger one. The wanting never stops. The hunger never fills. The will never rests. That's what Schopenhauer saw, that life isn't suffering because of what happens to us. Life is suffering because of what we are, wanting machines, desire engines, walking hungers that can never be fed because feeding them just makes them hungrier. And that's why you're broke. Not because you lack money, because you lack the ability to ever have enough. Have you felt it? The emptiness after getting what you wanted, the immediate shift to wanting something else? Do you remember the last time wanting actually stopped? Life swings like a pendulum between pain and boredom, Schopenhauer wrote. And he meant it literally. You're either in pain from not having what you want, or you're bored because you have it. Those are your options, suffering or emptiness. Lack or satiation that feels like lack. The pendulum swings and you're always on it, never in a place that feels like rest. When you don't have what you want, you suffer. Obviously, you want the money and don't have it. Want the person and can't have them. Want the life and are living a different one. The lack hurts, feels like something's wrong with you. with your life, with the universe. You're in pain, actual pain, not metaphorical. The pain of desire unfulfilled, but then you get it. Get the thing you wanted, and there's a moment, maybe a day, maybe an hour, where it feels like relief, like you've arrived, like the wanting has stopped, but it hasn't. The relief is just the pendulum pausing at the top of its arc before swinging back. And when it swings, you're not in pain anymore. You're in boredom, in dissatisfaction, in the strange emptiness of having what you wanted and realizing it wasn't what you actually needed. And boredom, Schopenhauer said, is its own kind of suffering, maybe worse than the pain of wanting, because at least wanting gives you direction, gives you something to do, something to work toward. But having is just, now what? Now that you have the thing, now that you've achieved the goal, now that you're here, what is there to do except want something else? So you do, want something else. The pendulum swings back to pain, to lack, to the suffering of not having. And the cycle continues. Pain, boredom, forever, until you die. That's life. That's what Schopenhauer saw. Not because he was pessimistic, because he was honest, because he looked at the structure of wanting and saw that it doesn't have an end point, doesn't have a satisfaction state, just has more wanting. I knew someone who spent 10 years wanting to retire, worked 60-hour weeks, saved every penny, planned for the day they could finally stop working and just be. And they got there. Retired at 55, had enough money, had the freedom they'd wanted, and within 6 months they were miserable. Not because retirement was bad, because wanting to retire had given them purpose, had given them something to work toward. And having retired took that away, left them with boredom, with the emptiness of having achieved the goal, with nothing to want next. They tried wanting other things, wanted to travel, did, wanted to learn hobbies, did, wanted to spend time with family, did, and none of it filled the hole, none of it satisfied, because the hole isn't something that can be filled. It's the structure of consciousness itself, the will, wanting, always wanting, never satisfied, never done. And they couldn't go back, couldn't unretire, couldn't return to the pain of working toward retirement, because they were already there. So they just existed in boredom, in the strange suffering of having everything they'd wanted and realizing that having it didn't change anything fundamental about being alive, didn't turn off the wanting, just removed the obvious targets. The field outside doesn't swing between pain and boredom, doesn't suffer from lack or emptiness, just is, just exists, just continues being a field through all seasons without needing any of them to be different. But you're not a field, you're a pendulum, swinging, always swinging, never at rest. Do you recognize the swing? Do you know which side you're on right now, pain or boredom, wanting or having? And do you see that neither is better, that both are just suffering in different shapes? Here's the thing nobody tells you. Getting what you want is worse than not getting it. Not because getting it is bad, because getting it reveals that wanting it was a lie, that you didn't actually want the thing, you wanted the relief from wanting the thing. And relief doesn't come from having, comes from briefly stopping wanting, and you can't stop wanting by getting, can only stop by wanting something else. When you don't have what you want, you can blame the lack, can tell yourself that if only you had the thing, if only you achieved the goal, if only you got there, then you'd be satisfied. Then you'd be happy. Then you'd be complete. The lack gives you an explanation for why you're not satisfied, gives you hope that satisfaction is possible. Just requires having instead of lacking. But when you have it, when you've gotten what you wanted, you lose the explanation. Lose the hope, because now you have the thing and you're still not satisfied, still not happy, still not complete. And that reveals the truth you've been avoiding, that the problem isn't what you don't have. The problem is that you're the kind of being that wants, that the wanting is structural, fundamental, part of what you are, not something that having can fix. Schopenhauer saw this, saw that people are more miserable after achieving their desires than before, because before they had hope, had the belief that getting would satisfy, but after, they just have proof that it doesn't, have the evidence that wanting is the problem, and having doesn't solve it, and that knowledge is worse than the wanting ever was. I'm watching a bird right now. It's eating, just eating seeds from the ground, and when it's done eating, it'll stop, won't keep eating. Won't eat until it's sick, won't develop a relationship with food where eating reminds it of all the meals it hasn't eaten yet, will just eat until fed and then fly away. Because birds don't want, don't desire in the way humans do, just respond to hunger with eating and then stop. But you can't stop, can't just eat until fed and be done, have to want dessert, have to want the meal to be better than it is, have to want to eat somewhere else next time. Have to turn eating into an opportunity for desire instead of just a response to hunger. And that's what makes you broke, not lack of food, inability to just eat and be satisfied. You wanted the degree, got it, realized it was just paper, wanted the job, got it, realized it was just work, wanted the partner, got them, realized they're just a person, wanted the achievement, achieved it, realized it was just a moment that passed, and each time, each getting, each having, revealed that the wanting was the thing you were really doing, that getting was just the excuse to want, that having was just the proof that wanting doesn't end, and knowing this doesn't help, doesn't make the wanting stop, just makes you aware that you're trapped, that you're a machine that wants, and getting what you want just resets the machine. Doesn't turn it off, doesn't satisfy it, just gives it new targets, new lacks, new reasons to be unsatisfied. That's why getting what you want is worse, because it takes away the one comfort you had, the belief that getting would help, the hope that somewhere, somehow, there was a having that would end the wanting. And when you get and the wanting doesn't end, you lose that hope. Lose that belief, and you're left with just the naked truth that you're a wanting machine, and wanting machines don't have an off switch. Have you gotten what you wanted? Did it satisfy? Or did it just show you that satisfaction isn't what getting provides? Did it make you more broke or less? You're operating in an economy where enough doesn't exist, where the goal isn't to have enough, but to always want more, where satisfaction is the enemy and desire is the currency. And in that economy, everyone is broke. Because broke isn't about what you have. It's about the gap between what you have and what you want. And that gap never closes, never narrows, just shifts. Poor people want money. Rich people want more money, homeless people want shelter, homeowners want bigger houses, unemployed want jobs, employed want better jobs. The wanting doesn't stop at any level of having, doesn't reach a point where you have enough and can rest, just continues, just scales, just finds new things to want. And this is what Schopenhauer meant about will, that it's not your personal desire, it's the structure of desire itself, the thing that makes you want. And it doesn't care what you have, doesn't care what you've achieved, doesn't care about your bank account or your accomplishments or your possessions, just cares about wanting, just continues generating lack, continues making you feel like you need something you don't have, no matter how much you have. I knew a woman who had millions, actual millions of dollars, more money than she could spend in 10 lifetimes, and she was miserable, not because the money didn't help, it did. Solved all the problems money can solve, but it revealed all the problems money can't solve, and the main one is wanting. She wanted things money couldn't buy, wanted relationships to be different, wanted her past to not have happened, wanted her future to be certain, wanted herself to be different, and money didn't touch any of that. Money just removed the excuse that not having money was why she wasn't satisfied. So she was broke, rich and broke. had everything money could provide, and still felt the fundamental poverty of being someone who wants, still woke up every day feeling like something was missing, like there was a next thing, like she wasn't there yet, wherever there was, and no amount of money changed that feeling. Because that feeling isn't about money, it's about being alive, being conscious, being the kind of creature that wants. And poor people aren't different, don't have some special contentment that rich people lack, are just broke in more obvious ways, broke financially and existentially, wanting money and wanting everything else. The poverty is the same, the wanting is the same, the gap between having and wanting is the same, just more visible when you can't pay rent. But here's what's true about both, rich or poor, satisfied or dissatisfied, having or lacking. The only moments of peace either ever feel are the moments between wants. The brief spaces when you're not wanting anything, when you're not reaching for the next thing, when you're just here, just existing, just being without needing to be more or different or somewhere else. Those moments are rare, are brief, are accidental mostly. You don't choose them. They just happen. Between getting what you wanted and wanting the next thing, between waking up and remembering what you want, between finishing one task and starting another. In those gaps, those tiny spaces, there's peace. There's enough. There's the absence of wanting, and that absence feels better than having ever has, better than getting, better than achieving, just better. But you can't stay there, can't live in the gaps. The wanting comes back, the will reasserts, the machine starts running again. And you're back in the economy of never enough, back in the poverty of always wanting, back to being broke no matter what you have. The field outside doesn't have an economy, doesn't measure itself against other fields, doesn't want to be more or different or better, just is, just exists in whatever state it's in. And that's enough. That's always enough, because fields don't want, don't have will, don't participate in the economy of desire. But you do. You're in it. You can't leave, can't opt out. Can only recognize that you're broke, that you've always been broke, that you'll always be broke as long as you want. And wanting is what you are, so broke is what you are. And that's not fixable, not solvable, not something that having more will address, just the condition of being alive. Do you see it, the economy you're in? Do you see that enough doesn't exist there, that you're broke by design? That wanting is the poverty and everything else is just details? Schopenhauer said desire is like hunger, but it's a hunger that feeding makes worse. You eat and you get hungrier. You drink and you get thirstier. You have and you want more. The satisfaction doesn't satisfy, just reveals deeper lack, just opens more holes, just makes you more aware of everything you still don't have. And this isn't metaphorical, it's actual. You can watch it happen. You want something, want it badly. Think about it constantly, plan for it, work toward it. And the wanting feels painful but also meaningful, gives you direction, gives you purpose, gives you something to organize your life around. And then you get it, get the thing you wanted. And there's a moment of relief, of accomplishment, of feeling like you've arrived, and then nothing, empty, done. The thing you wanted is just a thing you have, and having it doesn't feel like you thought it would, doesn't fill you, doesn't complete you, doesn't end anything, so you want something else, immediately. Sometimes before you've even finished celebrating getting the last thing, the wanting shifts, finds new targets, new lacks, new things you don't have that you now need. And the new wanting is worse than the old wanting. Because now you know that getting doesn't help, know that having doesn't satisfy, but you want anyway, want more, want different, want next, because wanting is what you do, what you are, what you can't stop doing. This is why rich people aren't happy, why people who have everything are still miserable, why achievement doesn't achieve anything except more desire. The having makes the wanting worse, the getting makes the needing more intense. Because every satisfaction reveals that satisfaction is temporary, that the relief of having is just a pause before wanting something else, that feeding the hunger just makes you hungrier. I'm sitting on my porch, watching the grass grow. And the grass doesn't want to grow faster, doesn't look at itself and think, if only I were taller, if only I were greener, if only I covered more ground, then I'd be satisfied. Just grows, just exists, just is, grass being grass. And when it gets cut, it doesn't mourn being short, just grows again, just continues, just is. But you can't be like grass, can't just be, can't just exist without wanting to exist differently, can't grow without wanting to grow more, can't have without wanting more having. The wanting is constant, the hunger is permanent, and feeding it, having it, getting it, none of that helps. None of that makes you less hungry, just makes you hungry for bigger things, more things, different things. You got the first car, now you want a better car. Got the first house, now you want a bigger house. Got the first relationship, now you want a perfect relationship. Got the first achievement, now you want more achievements. The getting just raises the bar, just makes the next want bigger, just ensures you stay hungry no matter how much you eat. And you know this, have experienced this, have gotten things and immediately wanted more, have achieved goals and immediately set bigger ones, have had satisfaction and watched it evaporate into new desire. You know the hunger doesn't end. No feeding it makes it worse. But you feed it anyway, because what else is there to do? Stop wanting, stop desiring, stop being the kind of creature that has hunger? You can't. Schopenhauer knew you can't. The will won't let you. So you're stuck in a body that wants, stuck with a mind that generates desire, stuck feeding a hunger that feeding makes worse. Stuck being broke no matter how much you have, because having just reveals how much you still want. And the more you have, the more you want. The more you get, the more you need. The more you feed, the hungrier you are. That's the economy of desire. That's the structure of wanting. That's why you're broke. Not because you lack, because you want. And wanting is a hunger that having feeds into more wanting. And there's no end to it. No satisfaction state. No having enough. Just more hunger. Always more. Forever. Do you feel it? The hunger. Does getting satisfy you or just make you want more? When was the last time you felt full? Not physically, existentially. When was the last time wanting stopped even for a moment? Contentment, Schopenhauer said, is a negative state. It's not feeling good. It's the temporary absence of suffering, the brief pause when you're not in pain from wanting and not yet bored from having. And even that negative state, that mere absence, is nearly impossible to maintain, because the will doesn't rest, doesn't pause, doesn't allow you to just be content with what is. You can't be content because contentment requires not wanting, requires being satisfied with what you have, requires the will to stop driving you toward more, different, next. And the will won't stop. It's not designed to stop. It's designed to want, to generate lack, to ensure you never rest, never arrive, never feel like enough is enough. And this is why all the advice about gratitude and presence and living in the moment is fundamentally useless. Not because it's wrong, because it's impossible. You can practice gratitude all you want, can list everything you're thankful for, can acknowledge how much you have, and the wanting will still be there, the desire will still gnaw, the sense that something's missing will still persist. Because contentment isn't something you choose. It's something the will either allows or doesn't, and mostly it doesn't. I knew a man who tried everything: meditation, gratitude journals, minimalism, stoicism, Buddhism, every practice and philosophy that promised contentment, and he got good at them, could meditate for hours, could list his gratitudes, could live with almost nothing, could accept what he couldn't change, but he was still not content, still felt the wanting. Still woke up every day feeling like there was something he should be doing, having, becoming. The practices helped, made the suffering more bearable, but they didn't end it, didn't turn off the wanting, just taught him to watch the wanting with slightly less attachment. And that's the best you can do, not achieve contentment, just become aware of why contentment is impossible. Just see the will operating, just recognize that wanting is structural, not personal, that the lack you feel isn't because you're doing something wrong, it's because you're doing exactly what the will designed you to do. Want, always want, forever want. Contentment isn't a state you achieve, it's a state you occasionally fall into by accident, when the will pauses, when desire briefly stops, when you're not wanting and not bored, just existing, just here. And those moments are precious, are rare, are the only peace you'll ever know. But they're not something you can make happen, can't practice your way into, can't achieve through effort, because effort is wanting, and wanting is the opposite of contentment. The field outside is content, not because it practices contentment, because it doesn't want, doesn't have will, doesn't generate desire, just is, just exists as what it is in whatever condition it's in, rain or drought, summer or winter, healthy or dying. The field doesn't want to be different, doesn't feel lack, doesn't suffer from the gap between what it is and what it should be, just is. And that's contentment, pure, actual, impossible for you contentment, because you're not a field, you're a wanting machine, and wanting machines don't get to be content, don't get to rest in what is, don't get to stop desiring and just be. The machine runs, the will wants, the hunger persists, and contentment, if it comes at all, comes as a brief malfunction, a momentary pause in the wanting, a glitch in the program. Not a destination, not an achievement, just an accident you can't repeat. And that's brutal. That's the brutal truth Schopenhauer saw, that the thing you want most, contentment, peace, satisfaction, is the one thing the structure of your consciousness won't allow, that you're designed to want, to lack, to suffer the gap between having and needing. And no amount of having closes the gap. No amount of achievement ends the wanting. No amount of success makes you content. You're broke because you want, and you want because you're alive. And being alive means being will, and will means wanting. And wanting means broke, forever, until you're dead. And maybe not even then. Who knows if the will ends with death? Schopenhauer didn't think so, thought the will just continues, wanting through other forms, other bodies, other lives, forever unsatisfied, forever incomplete, forever broke. Can you accept that? Can you live knowing contentment is impossible? Can you continue wanting knowing wanting is the problem? What else can you do? Stop being alive? The only peace you've ever felt was between wanting things, in the gaps, in the spaces, in the brief moments when you weren't reaching for the next thing and hadn't yet remembered what you wanted. Those moments are the closest you get to not being broke, not because you had enough, because you weren't wanting, weren't measuring, weren't aware of lack, just were, just existed. Just breathed and lived and didn't need anything to be different. And you know those moments, can remember them if you try. Waking up on a morning when you didn't immediately remember your problems, finishing something and before starting the next thing. Being so absorbed in a moment that you forgot to want, being so present that the will paused. Those are the moments, those are the gaps, and in those gaps you weren't broke, weren't poor, weren't lacking, just were. But the gaps are temporary, are accidental, are not something you can create or extend. The wanting comes back, always comes back. The will reasserts, the machine starts running, and you're back in lack, back in wanting, back in the poverty of consciousness that generates desire. Schopenhauer knew this, knew the only real peace was in the cessation of wanting, not in having, in not wanting, and he knew not wanting was nearly impossible while alive, while the will operates through you. while you are the will wanting? So he advocated resignation, not giving up, resigning yourself to the structure, accepting that wanting is what you are and peace is only in the gaps. But resignation isn't satisfying, isn't comforting, is just honest, is just seeing clearly that you're trapped in a structure that ensures suffering, trapped being a wanting machine. And the best you can do is recognize the trap, see the gaps when they occur, not mistake having for peace, not confuse getting with satisfaction, not believe that the next want will be the one that finally fills you. I'm watching the wind blow right now, and the wind doesn't want to be stronger or different or going another direction, just blows, just moves air because that's what wind is. And when it stops, it doesn't miss blowing, doesn't feel lack, doesn't want to blow again, just is still and then blows again, and it's fine either way, blowing or still, moving or not. The wind doesn't have preference, doesn't have want, just is whatever it is at any moment. But you have preference, have want, have constant need for things to be different than they are. Can't be like the wind, can't just blow when you blow and be still when you're still without wanting either state to be different. Have to want, have to prefer, have to feel lack in whatever state you're in. Because that's what consciousness does. What the will does through consciousness. Generates lack, generates want, generates suffering from the gap between what is and what should be. And the gaps, the moments between wants, they're not something you earn, not something you deserve, not something you achieve through practice or wisdom or money. They just happen, randomly, accidentally, when the will pauses for reasons you don't control, and you can't hold on to them, can't make them last, can only be in them while they're happening and know they'll end. Know the wanting will come back. Know the peace is temporary. Know you'll be broke again soon. That's the only peace available. The between times, the gaps, the accidents. And knowing that is what Schopenhauer offers. Not hope, not solution, not a way out, just clarity. Just seeing the structure clearly, just understanding why you're broke and why you'll stay broke and why peace is only in the moments when you accidentally stop wanting, not because you've achieved something, because the machine paused, and pauses don't last. Can you recognize the gaps? Do you know what peace feels like? Not having, not getting, not achieving, but the absence of wanting, the brief spaces when you're not reaching, when you're just here, just now, just breathing, without needing anything to be different. Do you remember? When was the last time? Schopenhauer's answer to all this was resignation. And people hear that as giving up, as defeat, as pessimism. But it's not. Resignation is recognizing the structure and not fighting it, is seeing that you're a wanting machine and not trying to be something else, is accepting that wanting is the problem and knowing that wanting won't stop, is living without the hope that the next want will finally satisfy. Resignation is brutal honesty, is looking at the will and not flinching, is seeing your own poverty, your own constant lack, your own fundamental brokenness and not pretending it's solvable, not searching for the thing that will fill you, not believing in enough. Not confusing having with peace, just being what you are, a wanting thing that will keep wanting until you're dead, and accepting that. And that acceptance isn't depressing, it's freeing, not because it makes the wanting stop, but because it stops the hoping, stops the belief that satisfaction is out there somewhere if you just find the right thing, achieve the right goal, have the right amount. Resignation ends the false hope. And false hope, Schopenhauer knew, is more painful than honest despair, because false hope makes you think your suffering has a solution, that you're broke because you haven't found the right thing yet. That contentment is possible if you just keep searching. But resignation tells you the truth. You're broke because you want, and you'll always want, and wanting is the brokenness, not what you lack, what you desire, and desiring doesn't end with having. So you'll always be broke. And knowing that, accepting that, resigning yourself to that, that's not giving up, that's giving up the lie, the false hope, the belief that one more thing will finally be enough. I knew someone who resigned, who stopped hoping that the next achievement would satisfy, stopped believing that getting what they wanted would end the wanting, stopped fighting the will, and they didn't become passive, didn't stop doing things, didn't give up on life. They just stopped expecting doing things to solve anything, stopped believing achievement would fill them, stopped confusing activity with progress towards satisfaction. And they were fine, not happy, not sad, just fine, just alive, just continuing. They worked because working was what they did. They had relationships because relating was what they did. They lived because living was what they did. But they didn't do any of it expecting it to make them not broke, not expecting it to satisfy, not expecting it to end the wanting, just doing it because the alternative was not doing it, and that didn't seem better. That's resignation. Not giving up doing, giving up expecting doing to achieve what it can't achieve. Peace, contentment, satisfaction, the end of wanting. Those aren't achievable through action, through having, through getting. They're only achievable through the will pausing. And you can't make the will pause, can't control when the gaps happen. Can only recognize them when they do and not mistake having for why they occurred. The field outside is resigned, not because it tried and failed, because it never tried, never believed in achievement, never thought being a bigger field or a different field or a more impressive field would make it less of a lacking thing. Just is a field, just continues being a field. And that continuation without hope, that's resignation. That's what Schopenhauer saw as the only honest way to live. But you have hope, have been taught to have hope, have been told that wanting is good, that desire drives progress, that getting what you want is success, that achievement matters, that having more is better. And all of that is lies. Comfortable lies. Lies that keep you trying, keep you working, keep you wanting, keep you broke. Because broke people keep trying to not be broke. And trying is what the economy needs, what society needs, what the will uses you for. Resignation is seeing through the lies, seeing that wanting keeps you broke, that getting doesn't help, that having doesn't satisfy, that the only peace is accidental, that you're trapped being a wanting machine and continuing anyway. Not because continuing will fix anything, just because stopping isn't available. You're alive, you're wanting, you're broke, and resignation is being okay with that. Not happy about it, just okay, just honest, just done hoping for what can't be hoped for. Can you resign? Can you give up the hope that getting will satisfy? Can you continue living knowing that wanting is the problem and wanting won't stop? Or do you need the lie? Do you need the hope? Do you need to believe that you're broke because you haven't found the right thing yet, instead of because you want it all? The rich are broke, not financially, existentially. They have money and still want, have achieved and still lack, have gotten everything money can buy and still feel the poverty of consciousness, still wake up wanting, still feel incomplete, still measure themselves against what they don't have instead of what they do. The money didn't fix the wanting, just changed what they want. Poor people want money, rich people want meaning, poor people want security, rich people want purpose, poor people want basic needs met. Rich people want transcendence, the wants change, get more abstract, more existential. But they don't stop, don't decrease, don't become more satisfiable, just become harder to name, harder to achieve, harder to even identify. And that makes rich people more broke in some ways, because at least poor people know what they want, know what they lack, know what having might fix, but rich people have gotten, have achieved, and still feel broke, still feel empty, still feel like something's missing. But they can't name it anymore, can't point to a specific lack, can't blame not having for their dissatisfaction, have to face that the dissatisfaction is structural. that wanting is the problem, that they're broke because they're conscious, not because they're poor. Schopenhauer saw this, saw that wealthy people weren't happier, weren't more satisfied, weren't less tortured by desire, just had different desires, more complex desires, desires that money couldn't address, and those desires were worse, because they had no solutions, no achievable goals, no things to get that would satisfy them. Just abstract wants, existential lacks, spiritual poverty that no amount of having could touch. I'm watching a rich neighborhood from here, can see the big houses, the nice cars, the well-maintained everything. And I'm thinking about how every person in those houses wants something, wants their marriage to be different, wants their kids to be different, wants their past to not have happened, wants their future to be certain, wants their self to be fixed, wants meaning, wants purpose, wants something that all their money can't buy and all their achievement can't provide. And they're broke, maybe more broke than poor people, because poor people can still hope that money will help, can still believe that getting will satisfy, can still think they're broke because they lack resources. But rich people know better, have had resources, have gotten things, have achieved goals, and know it didn't help. Know they're still broke, still wanting, still suffering the gap between having and being satisfied, and knowing that that's a poverty money can't address. This is why suicide rates don't correlate with wealth, why depression doesn't care about bank accounts, why misery is equally distributed across economic classes, because the problem isn't material, isn't solvable with money, isn't about lacking resources, it's about consciousness, about being the kind of creature that wants, about the will operating through you, regardless of what you have or don't have. Rich people aren't happier because happiness isn't for sale, contentment isn't purchasable, satisfaction isn't something you can buy. Those are states that occur when the will pauses, when wanting stops, and wanting doesn't stop because you're rich, doesn't pause because you have things, doesn't care about your net worth or your achievements or your possessions, just keeps wanting, just keeps generating lack. Just keeps making you broke. So the rich are broke, the poor are broke, the middle class is broke, everyone's broke. Because everyone wants, because wanting is the poverty, because consciousness is the lack, because being alive means being, will means being, desire means being broke. And money doesn't change that. Success doesn't change that. Achievement doesn't change that. Having doesn't change that. Nothing changes that except death. And maybe not even death. Schopenhauer thought the will survives death, continues wanting through other forms. So maybe even dying doesn't make you not broke. Maybe broke is eternal. Maybe wanting is forever. The field outside isn't broke, isn't rich either, just is. Just exists without economics, without measuring, without wanting to be more or different or better. And that's the only not broke that exists, the only true wealth. The only real having enough, being something that doesn't want. But you can't be that, can't become that, can only occasionally, accidentally, briefly stop wanting. And in those gaps, in those moments, you're as rich as the field, as wealthy as the grass, as not broke as anything can be. But the gaps end, the wanting returns, and you're broke again, rich or poor, successful or failing, having or lacking. Broke, always broke, forever broke, because you want, because your will, because you're alive. Do you see it now? Do you see that money won't fix it? That getting won't help? That you're broke because you want and wanting doesn't stop with having? Do you see that rich people are just broke with better furniture? That wealth doesn't address the poverty that actually matters? The freedom from wanting is the only freedom that matters. And it's the one freedom you can't have, can't achieve, can't work toward, can't buy, can't earn, can't deserve, because wanting is what you are. And freedom from what you are is death, and maybe not even death, maybe just impossible. Maybe the will continues forever, maybe wanting never ends, maybe broke is the permanent state of consciousness. Schopenhauer looked at Buddhism, studied it, saw that Buddha taught the cessation of desire as the path to enlightenment, the ending of wanting as the solution to suffering, and Schopenhauer thought Buddha was right, thought the only real freedom was in not wanting, the only real peace was in the ending of desire, but he also knew it was nearly impossible. Knew that while alive, while the will operates through you, while you are desire incarnate, stopping desire was functionally impossible. Maybe monks can do it. Maybe people who dedicate their entire lives to meditation and renunciation and the systematic destruction of want can achieve it. Maybe, but probably not. Probably even monks want enlightenment, want peace, want freedom from wanting. And that wanting keeps them wanting, keeps them broke, keeps them trapped being the thing that wants, even while trying not to want. And you're not a monk, aren't dedicating your life to the cessation of desire, are probably doing the opposite, are probably trying to get what you want, are probably believing that having will satisfy, are probably participating in the economy of wanting, working to have, having to want more. Wanting more to work toward, the cycle continuing, the poverty perpetuating, the brokenness permanent. So the freedom you want, the freedom from wanting, the freedom to just be without needing, without lacking, without constantly reaching for the next thing, that freedom isn't available, isn't possible, isn't something you can achieve through any means. Because achieving is wanting, and wanting is the trap, and you can't use the trap to escape the trap. I'm watching the wind stop right now, just stop blowing, and the stillness isn't the wind trying not to blow. Isn't the wind achieving freedom from blowing, is just what happens sometimes. The wind blows and then doesn't blow, and the not blowing isn't better or worse or more free than the blowing. Just is what the wind is doing now instead of then. No effort. No achievement, no freedom sought or gained, just being what wind is. Sometimes moving, sometimes still, but you can't be like that. Can't just want sometimes and not want sometimes without effort or achievement. Your not wanting has to be earned, has to be practiced, has to be achieved through discipline and renunciation and systematic denial of desire. And that achievement is wanting. That practice is desire. That discipline is the will operating through you to try to stop the will from operating through you. And it doesn't work, can't work. Is using the thing to stop the thing. Is desire trying to end desire. Is the wanting to not want. And that's still wanting. So you're stuck. Stuck wanting freedom from wanting, stuck desiring to not desire, stuck being broke while trying to not be broke, and the trying makes you more broke. The desiring to not desire is just more desire. The wanting to not want is just more wanting. And Schopenhauer knew this, knew the trap was inescapable, knew freedom was impossible, knew you'd stay broke, always broke, forever broke, because broke is what consciousness is. And that's not solvable, not fixable, not something that trying harder will address, is just the structure of being alive, of being aware, of being will. You want, you'll always want, and wanting keeps you broke, and that's forever, until you're dead, and maybe after. Maybe forever, maybe consciousness is eternal wanting, maybe broke is what everything is once it's aware enough to want. Maybe the will is the universe itself wanting through forms, and you're just one form, one temporary configuration of wanting, one brief expression of the eternal poverty of consciousness. The field will outlive you, will continue being field when you're gone, will grow and die and grow again without ever wanting to be anything except what it is. And that continuation, that eternal being without wanting, that's the only freedom that exists. But it's not freedom you can have, because having it would require not being you, not being conscious, not being will, just being field, being grass, being wind, being anything except the thing that wants, and you can't do that, can't become that, can only be what you are, wanting, always wanting, forever wanting, broke, always broke, forever broke. And the freedom from that isn't available, isn't achievable, isn't something that any amount of work or wisdom or wealth can provide, is just impossible. While you're alive, while you're conscious, while you're you, can you accept that? Can you live without hope for freedom from wanting? Can you continue being broke, knowing you'll always be broke? Or do you need the lie? Do you need to believe that freedom is possible? That someday, somehow you'll stop wanting? That eventually you'll have enough? That one day you'll be satisfied? Do you need that lie to continue, or can you continue without it? The field knows nothing, wants nothing, is broke in no sense because broke requires wanting and the field doesn't want. Just grows, just exists, just is what it is in whatever condition it finds itself. And that's the wisdom you can't have, the knowledge you can't possess, the state you can't achieve, because achieving it would require stopping being you. And you are wanting, are will, are broke, and that's not changeable. Not while you're alive. The field doesn't suffer, doesn't measure itself against other fields, doesn't feel lack, doesn't want to be more or different or better, just is. And when it's dry, it's dry. And when it's green, and neither state is preferred, neither state is wanted, neither state makes the field feel complete or incomplete, just is whatever it is. And that's enough. That's always enough, because enough doesn't require wanting, just requires not wanting. And the field doesn't want, but you do. You want constantly, want endlessly, want what you don't have and want what you have to be different, and want yourself to be different and want the world to be different. Want the past to not have happened and the future to be certain and the present to be more than it is. Want, always want, forever want. And that wanting is the suffering, not what you lack, what you want. Schopenhauer looked at nature and saw the only peace available. The peace of not being conscious, the peace of not wanting, the peace of just existing without preference or desire or lack. And he knew that peace wasn't available to humans, wasn't available to consciousness, was only available to things that don't know they exist, things that don't want, things that just are. And he thought that was tragic, thought consciousness was a curse, thought being aware was the problem. Because awareness generates want, generates lack, generates the gap between what is and what should be, and that gap is suffering, that wanting is poverty, that awareness is broke, and you can't unknow what you know, can't become unaware, can't return to the field's peace, can only recognize that the field has something you can't have. Know something you can't know is something you can't be. I'm watching the grass grow right now, and the grass isn't thinking about growing, isn't wanting to grow, isn't measuring its growth against other grass, just grows, just exists as growing thing. And when it's cut, it doesn't mourn, doesn't feel set back, doesn't want to be tall again, just is short, and then grows again. And being short and being tall are the same to the grass, just states it's in, neither preferred, neither wanted, neither making it feel complete or incomplete. And that's the wisdom. That's what the field knows. That being doesn't require wanting, that existing doesn't require preference, that living doesn't require lack. But knowing that doesn't help you, doesn't make you like the field, doesn't turn off your wanting, just makes you aware of what you're missing, what you can't have, what the field has that you don't. And that awareness is its own poverty, its own lack, its own wanting. You want to not want to be like the field, want the peace of not wanting. And that wanting for not wanting is still wanting, is still the poverty, is still the brokenness, is still the trap. And you can't escape it by seeing it, can't transcend it by understanding it, can only live in it, as it, being it, forever. The field doesn't know it's not suffering, doesn't know it has peace, doesn't know it's complete, just is. And that not knowing is what makes the peace possible. That absence of awareness is what allows enough, but you're aware, you know, you want, And knowing and wanting make peace impossible, make enough impossible, make not broke impossible. So you're stuck knowing what you can't have, seeing what you can't be, understanding what won't help, and that knowledge doesn't free you, just makes you aware of your prison, your trap, your permanent state of brokenness. And awareness without solution is its own torture, its own suffering, its own form of wanting, wanting to not be aware, wanting to not know, wanting to return to the field's ignorance. But you can't. You're conscious, you're aware, you're broke, and that's permanent. The field will be here when you're dead, will continue growing, will continue being field, will continue having the peace you never had, and your death won't give you that peace. Will just end your wanting. Or maybe not even that. Maybe the will continues. Maybe wanting is eternal. Maybe consciousness persists and keeps wanting through whatever comes next. Maybe broke is forever in ways you can't even imagine yet. Do you envy the field? Do you want what it has? Do you see that wanting what it has is more wanting, that envying not wanting is still wanting, that you're trapped being what you are and what you are is wanting and wanting is broke and broke is forever? So what do? You're broke. You'll always be broke. Wanting keeps you broke. You can't stop wanting. You can't achieve satisfaction. You can't find enough. You can't be like the field. You can't escape the will. You can't have the freedom from wanting. You're trapped being a wanting thing. What do? You live, you continue. You want knowing, wanting is the problem. You desire knowing, desire doesn't satisfy. You get knowing, getting doesn't help. You achieve, knowing achievement doesn't complete you. You have knowing having doesn't end the lack. You live, knowing living is suffering. And you do it anyway, because what else is there? Schopenhauer didn't offer hope, didn't promise solutions, didn't pretend that understanding the trap would free you from the trap, just offered clarity, just showed you what you are, a wanting machine, a desire engine, a will-driven creature that will want until it dies and maybe after. And knowing that doesn't fix anything, just makes you honest about what you're doing, about why you're broke, about why you'll stay broke. And that honesty is something, not a solution, not a comfort, just something. Better than the lie, better than believing that the next want will satisfy, better than hoping that getting will end the wanting, better than thinking you're broke because you lack the right thing when you're broke because you want it all. The honesty is brutal, but it's honest. And honest is all Schopenhauer offered, all he had, all there is. You'll keep wanting, keep getting, keep having, keep being dissatisfied, keep feeling the gap between what you have and what you need, keep being broke. That's certain, that's the structure, that's what consciousness is, what the will does, what being alive means, and you'll do it until you're dead. And who knows what happens then? Maybe more wanting, maybe eternal wanting. Maybe consciousness continues and keeps wanting through forms and lives and experiences forever. Maybe broke is what existence is once it's aware enough to want. Or maybe death ends it. Maybe the will stops. Maybe wanting ceases. Maybe consciousness just stops, and that stopping is the only peace, the only real satisfaction, the only true not broke. But you can't know. Can't verify, can only live as wanting until you die, and then maybe find out or maybe not. Maybe death is the answer, or maybe death is just more questions, more wanting, more brokenness in forms you can't imagine yet. I'm sitting on this porch watching this field as the sun sets, and the field doesn't care that the day is ending, doesn't want the light to stay, doesn't mourn the coming darkness, just is field in sunlight and then field in darkness. And both are fine, both are enough, both are just states the field exists in without preference. But I care, I want, I prefer light to darkness, prefer warm to cold, prefer comfortable to uncomfortable, prefer satisfied to dissatisfied, and those preferences are the poverty, that wanting is the brokenness, that caring is the suffering, and I can't stop. Can't be field, can't just exist through states without preference. Have to want, have to care, have to be broke. That's what I am, what you are, what consciousness is. And we'll keep being it, keep wanting, keep suffering the wanting, keep feeling broke no matter what we have. Keep measuring lack, keep reaching for next, keep being the machines we are, running the program we run, doing what the will does through us, until we stop, until we die, until maybe the wanting ends, or maybe it doesn't, maybe we're broke forever. In ways and forms we can't comprehend, maybe the will is eternal and wanting is what existence is, and broke is the permanent state of everything aware enough to know it exists. Schopenhauer saw that, saw the eternality of wanting, the permanence of brokenness, the inescapability of suffering, and he didn't offer hope, didn't offer solutions, didn't offer comfort, just offered sight, just showed you what you are, what you'll always be, what you can't stop being, wanting, broke, suffering. And that sight doesn't fix anything, just makes you see clearly while you suffer. And maybe that's enough, not satisfaction, not peace, not freedom, just clarity. Just honest sight. Just knowing why you're broke and why you'll stay broke and why wanting is the poverty that no having can address. Just that. Just brutal, honest, uncomfortable clarity. While you continue wanting, while you continue being broke, while you continue living as the wanting thing you are, the field is still here, still being field, still not wanting, still having the peace you'll never have, and you can watch it, can envy it, can want what it has, can want to be like it. And that wanting is more wanting, that wanting to not want is still wanting. And you're still broke, still suffering, still trapped, still alive. And you'll stay that way until you don't, until death. Until maybe peace, or maybe more wanting, until the end, or until forever. Broke, always broke. Wanting, always wanting, being what you are. Which is will, which is desire, which is the poverty that having can't address, and getting can't solve, and achieving can't satisfy. That's what Schopenhauer knew. That's what he saw. That's what he offered, not hope, truth, brutal, uncomfortable, liberating truth. You're broke because you want, and you'll always want. And that's not fixable, not while you're alive. Maybe not ever. Maybe broke is eternal. Maybe wanting is what consciousness is. Maybe the will never rests, never stops, never allows satisfaction, never grants enough. And you have to live with that, have to be that, have to continue wanting, knowing wanting is the problem. Have to keep being broke knowing broke is permanent. Have to keep suffering knowing suffering is structural. And that's all there is. That's the whole truth. That's what raw existence actually looks like when you strip away the comfortable lies. You're broke. You'll stay broke. And knowing why doesn't change it, just makes you honest about it. And honesty, brutal as it is all Schopenhauer had to offer. All anyone has to offer. All there is. So that's what Schopenhauer knew, that desire is the poverty, that wanting keeps you broke, that getting doesn't satisfy, that having doesn't help, that you're trapped being a wanting machine, and wanting machines don't get to not be broke. They just want, forever, until they stop, and maybe not even then. If this resonated, if you recognized your own poverty in the wanting, subscribe to Raw Existence. We don't sell you solutions because there aren't any. We tell you why the problem is permanent, why you're broke, why you'll stay broke, why wanting is the poverty that no amount of having can address. Like this video, if you've ever gotten what you wanted and felt empty anyway. If you've ever recognized that satisfaction doesn't come from having. If you've ever felt broke no matter how much you had. If you've ever seen that wanting is the problem and known you can't stop wanting. And comment below. Tell me what you want right now. Tell me the last thing you got that satisfied you. Tell me if you've ever felt peace in the gaps between wanting. Tell me if you can accept that broke is permanent, that wanting is eternal, that Schopenhauer was right. Thanks for 40 minutes. For sitting with the uncomfortable truth that you're broke because you want and you'll always want, and wanting is what you are. For recognizing that the field has something you can't have. For seeing that consciousness is the curse and wanting is the poverty and getting doesn't help. The field is still out there, still being field, still not wanting, still having the peace that's impossible for you, and you're still here, still wanting, still broke, still being what you are, and that won't change, not until you're dead. Maybe not even then. Schopenhauer knew, and now you know, and knowing doesn't fix anything, just makes you honest. And honest, brutal as it is all there is. All we have, all that's real. Stay broke, it's all you can do, it's all any of us can do, want and be broke and continue anyway. Because the alternative is not being alive, and you're alive, so you want, so you're broke, so you continue. That's raw existence. That's the truth. That's what Schopenhauer saw and what you're seeing now. You're broke because you want, and you'll always want, and that's permanent, and that's honest, and that's all there is.